You know, with upland hardwoods, say, or even your forested swamps, you have these vast areas with really similar shared conditions where maybe light or the amount of water in the soil kind of becomes your dominant factors influencing how an ecology kind of grows. On the coast, they're much more like riparian forests. They're kind of these ecotones, like a meeting place between two larger systems. So you have kind of the marine system, and then you've got your inland system, and then you have this amazing band that can either be 10 meters wide to 500 meters wide, depending on those coastal and inland forces interacting and where that interaction takes place. So we do have historical writings going right back to the late 1600s, early 1700s that describe the most windblown spruce cliffs, you know, the Krumholtz as we call them nowadays, where the trees are literally growing at angles because the winds are so consistently strong. Those are described, and the cool thing they hint at, again, no really good descriptions I've ever seen, but the thing they hint at is just after those kind of spruce and bayberry and wild rose thickets of Krumholtzing vegetative material, those slow the winds just enough that they describe having larger, more deciduous forests with wide-spaced big trees in them. So for the past 3-4 years, I've been researching, assessing, and planting and restoring coastal forest habitats across Prince Edward Island. These are really unique and interesting habitats. Typically on our coast, when you have kind of a pretty regular loamy soil, you're going to have a lot of white spruce being those key tree species because they can resist the wind, right? That's why they grow there. It's not that they love it, but a hemlock will not survive there and a white spruce will, you know, survive. And then there's a whole component of specialist species, because when you're dealing with flying salts, high winds, you know, wave action, storm events, you need resilience. You need those species that can take salt and sand spray, just abrading their foliage and needles. You need woody plants that are going to be able to frictionally and incrementally kind of slow those wind speeds to start making more sheltered conditions, just meters inland, right? Where you can start to have a red maple or a serviceberry or something completely different grow. So, you know, at the front of the cliff or at the front of the dune is going to be the harshest winds, toughest soils, the most salt spray, and the most desiccation and air pruning, effectively, wind pruning. So you end up with these really low-growing species that are either want to be tall but can't, or just evolve to be small. So crowberries, little tiny bayberries, spruce that are developing. If it's windy enough, the spruce will bend right over and just basically form a spruce carpet on the ground. That's a carpeting deformation. So you can have all these really neat things. So you kind of end up usually, in each different kind of variety of coastal habitat that we have is a little different, but you kind of have this kind of barren coast top zone, very low growing, kind of under a few inches tall. That will slowly change the wind speeds, allowing things to get just a little bit taller slowly until you end up in the shrub zone where you're dominated by wild rose, bayberry, spirea, things like that. And then they keep slowing that, providing shelter for little tiny new propagations underneath them, and eventually you'll get spruce or other, often conifers, but they can be variable species, and they'll grow a little taller and kind of form what we call the thicket zone nowadays. It's just impenetrable usually. And then beyond that, you start getting into a coastal forest where the trees are tall enough to be considered a forest, and you can start to have a huge amount more diversity. Often it's not found right now because we farm so much. There was no seed sources, so the diversity's low. But if we wanted to go in with oak, if we wanted to go in with white ash, even sugar maple in sheltered spots, we've tested a little bit of that, we've done that, and it works. You know, towards the north, we have the whole open Gulf of St. Lawrence, which creates this just funneling wind system. So you get these strong northern winds, consistently strong, and they've got a huge kind of open water fetch to just pick up speed, create waves, and move. And with them comes erosional power, storm events, wind that intrudes inland. So when we denude these coastal landscapes, erosional rates skyrocket. Sedimentation starts shifting, so our dune building processes. We've got areas that used to have dunes 100 years ago, and those dunes have been depleting because of the way we've changed sediment transportation. They also come to slow those winds that come inland. And so your inland habitats aren't hit by the extreme winds that we're getting hit with nowadays. So there's that, but then also water. So spots that have enough vegetation, they slow coastal flooding. So they're a way of preventing a lot of damage to both habitats and ecologies, but also our infrastructure. So these like super productive, really interesting merging habitats, those are going to be really productive spots. And so you end up having a ton of animals that use these spots. And not just like ones that live here all year, like our red foxes, our bald eagles, but you're also going to have migratory species, our at-risk bank swallows that use these places as stopovers on their travels. So they become intrinsically linked to disparate habitats thousands of kilometers away. And so these are really fascinating places that pull in diversity from across North America while also protecting our inland habitats and letting them develop into healthier habitats. Part of the character of this place is we are an island coastal place. And if we rock armored the whole thing, which is the only solution engineering-wise to protect us all equally, you could ask the question, do we still feel like we live on PEI? And most people on PEI would say no, right? It's our dunes, our cliffs, it's these wild spaces that make us, the cultural place and the place that we love and live. And so protecting these moving forward and making those decisions, whether it's not rock armoring, but going for natural armoring, those kinds of things, I think there's a lot of ways to move forward that benefits all islanders, humans, animals, and plants.